Greetings, dear viewers. Welcome to Pika Fiction. Today's featured story is what if Ash saved Lusamine from the Ultra Beasts and she rewarded him with the Aether Foundation and her love what we do. Show your support by liking, commenting, and subscribing. Every little bit helps us create more content for you. Let's get started with today's story. Chapter 1, The Void and the Valkyrie. The air in the ultra-deep sea did not taste like air. It tasted like ozone, copper, and the static fuzz of a dying television channel. The gravity here was wrong, too, heavy in some places, dangerously light in others, shifting with the vagaries of a dimension that had never intended to sustain human life. Ash Ketchum didn't care about the physics. He cared about the woman screaming at the center of the nightmare. Pikachu, Iron Tail. Low sweep. Keep them off my flank. The command wasn't shouted. It was a flat, hard decree spoken with the absolute certainty of a general who had forgotten how to lose. A streak of yellow lightning tore through the gloom. The sound of steel impacting gelatinous flesh echoed through the cavernous obsidian expanse. Annihilego, one of the parasitic nightmares that swarmed this dimension, was sent careening into a pillar of black rock. It shrieked, a glass-shattering sound, before dissolving into a puddle of iridescent sludge. Ash didn't watch it fall. He kept moving. His boots crunched over the crystalline debris of the ultra space. His cap was pulled low, shading eyes that glowed with a faint, azure luminescence. The aura. It was flaring around him, a visible heat haze that kept the neurotoxins of the atmosphere at bay. Greninja, Ash murmured, his voice barely audible over the hum of the portal behind them. The path ahead. Clear it. From the shadows of a floating island, a shape materialized. It was water and darkness given form. Greninja didn't just move, he flowed. A water shuriken, expanded to the size of a riot shield, slammed into a cluster of 3 Nihilego blocking the jagged causeway. The impact was wet and violent. The beasts scattered, their translucent bodies rupturing under the pressure of the compressed hydroenergy. Ash vaulted over a ridge of jagged stone, landing in a crouch. He looked up. There she was. Lusamine. Or what was left of her. She hovered 10 feet off the ground, suspended by the massive, bloated form of the mother beast. The parasite had fused with her, its tentacles woven into her hair, its toxins pumping through her veins, turning her skin a translucent, sickly pale. Her eyes, once a piercing emerald, were now void black, devoid of recognition, filled only with a chaotic, ravenous hunger. Get out, the thing that wore Lusamine's face screamed. The voice was distorted, layered with a buzzing, insectoid harmony. This is my world. My beautiful world. She raised a hand. The air warped. A massive pulse of psychic energy, purple and black, surged toward Ash like a tidal wave. Ash didn't flinch. He didn't even slow down. Hold the line, he said. Pikachu, perched on Ash's shoulder, leaped forward. The mouse Pokémon hung in the air for a fraction of a second, cheeks sparking with enough voltage to power a city block. Bzzzt crack. A thunderbolt intercepted the psychic wave. The collision created a shockwave that rattled Ash's teeth, but he leaned into it, using the force to propel himself forward. He was running now, a dead sprint across the floating causeway. You don't belong to them, Lusamine. Ash roared, his voice cutting through the screeching of the beasts. And I'm not leaving without you. The mother beast snarled. Tentacles lashed out like whips, cracking the obsidian floor where Ash had been a second before. He slid underneath one strike, the smell of ammonia stinging his nose, and rolled back to his feet. He was close now. 10 yards. 5. Greninja. Restrain. The ninja Pokémon appeared directly above the floating hybrid. With a fluid motion, Greninja slammed a palm onto the mother beast's primary dome. Ice instantly crystallized, spreading like a web, freezing the parasite's movements for a heartbeat. It was all the time Ash needed. He jumped. It wasn't a graceful leap. It was a desperate, gravity-defying lunge powered by aura and adrenaline. He collided with Lusamine midair. The impact knocked the wind out of him, but his arms locked around her waist. The sensation was revolting. Her skin felt like cold slime, the interface between her dress and the beast slick with toxins. The parasite shrieked, a sound that drilled directly into Ash's skull, and thrashed. "Let go," the dual voice screamed. "I am perfect. We are perfect." Ash gritted his teeth, the muscles in his jaw bunching. The toxins were trying to seep into him, burning where his skin touched hers. He flared his aura, pushing back, forcing a barrier of pure will between himself and the poison. "You're not perfect." Ash growled, pulling her closer, fighting the beast that was trying to drag her upward. "You're a mother. And you're drowning." He looked into those void black eyes. For a second, just a microsecond, he saw the panic beneath the madness. He saw the woman trapped in the diving bell, running out of air. Pikachu. Iron tail on the coupling. Now. Pikachu dropped from the ceiling, tail glowing with metallic luster. He spun like a buzzsaw, slamming into the fleshy node connecting the Nihilego to Lusamine's head. The beast howled. The connection severed. Ash kicked off the freezing bulk of the monster, clutching Lusamine to his chest. They fell. Gravity in ultra-space was a fickle mistress. They plummeted 30 feet, slamming onto a ledge of black glass. Ash took the brunt of the impact, twisting his body so his back hit the stone. He groaned, the air leaving his lungs in a sharp hiss, but his grip never loosened. Above them, the mother beast, shorn of its host, writhed in confusion, leaking fluid onto the rock. Ash scrambled back, dragging Lusamine with him. She was limp, unconscious, covered in the viscous remnants of the creature. "Greninja," Ash wheezed, standing up, his legs shaking. "Finish it." Greninja didn't hesitate. The Pokémon drew a shuriken from its thigh, this one glowing a deep, angry crimson. With a single, vertical slash, the beast was bisected. It dissolved into light and dust before it even hit the ground. Silence rushed back into the cavern, heavy and suffocating. Ash fell to his knees beside Lusamine. He placed a hand on her cheek. It was freezing. Her breathing was shallow, erratic. "Hey," he whispered, wiping a streak of black slime from her forehead. His hand glowed with a soft blue light, aura transfer. He was pouring his own vitality into her, jump-starting her system. "Come on. Wake up. Lily is waiting." Lusamine gasped. Her back arched off the cold stone. The blackness in her eyes receded, shrinking away to reveal the terrified, trembling green beneath. She stared up at him. The boy, no, the man, above her was battered. His jacket was torn, his cheek was bleeding, and he looked like he had just fought a god. But his eyes were steady. They were the only stable thing in a world of madness. "Ash," her voice was a ruin, cracked and small. "I've got you," he said, his voice dropping an octave, losing the combat edge, becoming something warm and solid. "You're safe." Lusamine trembled, the adrenaline crash hitting her all at once. The horror of what she had done, what she had become, washed over her. She reached out, gripping the lapels of his torn vest with desperate strength. The voices. She sobbed, burying her face in his chest. They wouldn't stop singing. Ash wrapped his arms around her, shielding her from the alien sky. "They're gone. I silenced them." He looked up at his team. Pikachu was panting but alert, ears swiveling. Greninja stood like a sentinel on a higher ridge, watching the dark horizon. "Solgaleo!" Ash shouted into the void. "Get us home." A roar like a solar flare answered him. A portal of blinding light tore open the darkness, and the sun Pokémon descended, majestic and warm, burning away the gloom of the deep sea. As the light enveloped them, Lusamine didn't look at the portal. She looked at Ash. She clung to him as if letting go would mean falling back into the nightmare forever. The transition from ultra space to the material plane was always violent, like being pulled through a straw. They materialized on the conservation deck of Aether Paradise. The artificial sunlight of the dome was blinding compared to the gloom they had left. Solgaleo landed heavily, skidding across the pristine white tiles, claws gouging deep furrows before coming to a halt. Ash slid off the legendary lion's back, catching Lusamine as she stumbled. The alarm klaxons were already blaring. Director. Target secure. Medics. We need medics. A squad of Aether Foundation guards, clad in white tactical gear, rushed the platform. Leading them was Wick, her face pale, and behind her, Branch Chief Faba, looking more terrified than relieved. Back. Ash barked. The command stopped the guards in their tracks. It wasn't a request. Ash stood between the approaching squad and Lusamine, his posture radiating a threat level that triggered the survival instincts of everyone in the room. Pikachu sparked on his shoulder, cheeks crackling. She's contaminated with neurotoxins, Ash said, his voice rough. She needs isolation and immediate detox. No one touches her without gloves. If you crowd her, she goes into shock. Is that understood? Wick nodded frantically, adjusting her glasses. Understood, Mr. Ketchum. We have the containment unit prepped. Please, bring her this way. Ash looked down at Lusamine. She was conscious, but barely. She was leaning all her weight on him, her head resting on his shoulder. She looked small. The imperious president of Aether Paradise was gone, replaced by a survivor holding onto a life raft. I can walk, she whispered, though her legs buckled as she tried. Don't be stupid, Ash muttered. He swept her up into his arms, bridal style. She was surprisingly light. She stiffened for a moment, then relaxed, her head falling back against his chest. She closed her eyes, listening to the steady, rhythmic thrum of his heart. It was a stark contrast to the chaotic buzzing that had filled her head for weeks. As Ash carried her toward the medical wing, he passed Faba. The psychic specialist was wringing his hands, eyes darting nervously between Lusamine and the tear in reality Solgaleo had left behind. Mr. Ketchum, Faba started, his voice oily and trembling. While we appreciate the rescue, there are protocols regarding the Ultra Beasts. Ash didn't stop walking. He didn't even look at Faba. But as he passed, Greninja materialized from the air directly behind the branch chief, a blade of water resting millimeters from Faba's throat. Faba squeaked and froze. We'll talk about protocols later, Faba, Ash said, walking away. Right now, if you speak again, I'll let Greninja file a complaint. Time lost its meaning in the sterile white halls of the medical wing. Ash sat in a plastic chair outside the intensive care unit. He had refused to leave to get his wounds treated, settling for a field medic patching up the gash on his cheek and wrapping his bruised ribs while he sat guard. He watched through the observation glass. Lusamine was hooked up to a dozen machines. Dialysis for the toxins. Psychic dampeners to quiet her mind. She looked peaceful, sleeping a dreamless, chemical sleep. Gladion and Lily had come and gone. There had been tears, reunions, and the heavy silence of a family that had almost been annihilated. Ash had given them space, stepping into the shadows when they arrived. This was their moment. He was just the sword that had cut the knot. But when Lily had left, exhausted, to sleep in the guest quarters, Ash had returned to the chair. He didn't know why he stayed. Maybe it was the lingering adrenaline. Maybe it was the fact that he sensed a residual darkness in the corners of the room, a faint echo of the ultra space that made the hair on his arms stand up. Or maybe it was the way she had looked at him before the sedation took hold. Like he was the only real thing in the universe. The door to the ICU hissed open. Ash stood up instantly, hand drifting to the pokeball on his belt. It was Wick. She looked tired, holding a data pad. She's asking for you, Wick said softly. Ash blinked. Is she stable? Physically? Yes. The toxins are purged. Mentally, she is fragile. But she is remarkably lucid. She refused to speak to the board of directors. She demanded to see you. Ash nodded, adjusting his cap. He took a breath, centering his aura, pushing away his own exhaustion. He needed to be the rock. He walked into the room. The air smelled of antiseptic and lilacs. Lusamine was sitting up, propped against a mountain of pillows. Her hair was loose, cascading over her shoulders in a pale wave, stripped of the elaborate geometry she usually wore. She wore a simple white patient's gown. She looked younger. Vulnerable. But her eyes were clear. The green was sharp, intelligent, and focused entirely on him. Ash, she said. Her voice was raspy, but it held a core of steel. Hey, Ash said, stopping at the foot of the bed. You should be sleeping. I slept enough while that thing was wearing me, she said, a shudder passing through her. She clenched her hands into fists on the sheets. I remember everything, Ash. The obsession. The madness. Treating Lily like a doll. Treating you like a specimen. She looked down at her hands. I remember you coming for me. When everyone else ran away. Ash walked around the bed and pulled the chair close. He sat down, leaning forward, elbows on his knees. The toxins messed with your head. It wasn't you. Wasn't it? Lusamine looked at him, her gaze piercing. The toxins amplified what was already there. My desire to control. My desire to possess. She reached out, her hand hovering in the air. Ash hesitated, then took her hand. Her skin was warm now. You broke the control, she whispered. When you pulled me out. I felt your mind. It was so clear. No noise. Just purpose. Her fingers tightened around his. Why did you save me, Ash? After everything I did? Because you needed saving, Ash said simply. And because Lily needs her mother. Not a monster. Lusamine laughed, a dry, brittle sound. You make it sound so simple. It is simple. She studied his face. The scar on his cheek, the determination in his jaw, the kindness in his eyes that didn't mask the dangerous power beneath. She realized then that he wasn't a child. He was a force of nature that had chosen to be human. Help me up, she said suddenly. What? No. You need rest. I need to address the Foundation, Lusamine said, her voice hardening. Faba is already maneuvering. I can see the updates on the internal server. He's spinning this as a containment breach caused by my incompetence. He plans to petition the international police for a leadership review within the hour. Ash frowned. I can handle Faba. I know you can, Lusamine said, a faint, dangerous smile touching her lips. I saw you threaten to decapitate him. It was very attractive, in a barbaric sort of way. Ash choked on air. What? But I cannot rule through fear alone, Lusamine continued, swinging her legs over the side of the bed. She wobbled. Ash was there instantly, his arm around her waist, supporting her. She leaned into him, smelling the smoke and sea salt on his jacket. I need to show them that I am not broken. And I need to show them that things are going to change. The main atrium of Aether Paradise was a cathedral of glass and steel. Currently, it was packed with hundreds of employees, scientists, grunts, administrators, murmuring in a low tide of anxiety. Faba stood on the raised podium, adjusting the microphone. He wore a mask of solemn concern that didn't quite reach his eyes. Colleagues, Faba began, his voice echoing through the hall. It is with a heavy heart that I must inform you. President Lusamine is incapacitated. The mental strain of the Ultra Beast encounter has rendered her unfit for. The massive double doors at the back of the atrium slammed open. The sound was like a gunshot. The room fell silent. Lusamine strode into the hall. She was not wearing a hospital gown. She had summoned a fresh suit, white, sharp, pristine. She walked with a slight limp, but her head was held high, her expression imperious. But what silenced the room wasn't just her presence. It was the man walking beside her. Ash Ketchum walked at her right hand, half a step behind. He wasn't posturing. He was simply scanning the room, his gaze sweeping over the crowd with the predatory calmness of a Gyarados in shallow water. Pikachu rode on his shoulder, cheeks sparking warningly. Faba turned pale. President. You should be in recovery. Save your false concern, Faba, Lusamine's voice rang out, clear and cold. She didn't use the microphone, she didn't need to. She ascended the stairs to the podium, Ash shadowing her every move. She stood before her employees. She let the silence stretch, letting them see her. She let them see that she was alive, that she was sane, and that she was furious. The Aether Foundation, she began, her voice low and intense, was built to protect. Somewhere along the way, under my guidance, we lost that path. We became jailers. We became hoarders. She looked at Ash. He nodded, a barely perceptible dip of his chin. I was lost, she admitted to the crowd, a gasp rippling through the room. I was taken by the darkness I sought to control. I would be dead, or worse, if not for the actions of one trainer. She turned fully to Ash, extending a hand. He stepped forward, entering the spotlight. Ash Ketchum did not just save my life, Lusamine declared. He saved the soul of this foundation. He faced the ultra space and brought order to chaos. She turned back to the crowd, her eyes locking onto Faba, who was shrinking away. Effective immediately, there will be a restructuring of the Aether Foundation. Lusamine took a breath. She reached out and took Ash's hand, raising it high. It was a gesture of victory, but also a binding contract. I am appointing Ash Ketchum as the Supreme Guardian of Aether Paradise and Acting Executive Director of Operations. His word carries my authority. His judgment is my judgment. He is the shield of this foundation, and the sword that defends it. The room erupted. Shock, whispers, shouts of confusion. Faba stepped forward, sputtering. President. He is a child. A foreigner. You cannot simply hand over half the foundation to a, I can, Lusamine snapped, her eyes flashing. And I have. She lowered her voice, leaning into the microphone, her tone dropping to a whisper that carried to the back of the room. Furthermore, she added, her voice softening, a flush of color returning to her pale cheeks. He is the only man in this world who has seen my worst, and chosen to hold me rather than destroy me. His loyalty is absolute. And so is mine to him. She looked at Ash. The political mask slipped for a second, revealing the raw, intense emotion beneath. It wasn't love, not yet, it was something heavier. It was debt, awe, and a desperate, clawing need for his strength. Welcome home, Ash, she whispered, only for him to hear. Ash looked out at the sea of faces, some terrified, some awestruck. He looked at Faba, who was sweating profusely. He looked at the massive glass ceiling, where the stars were beginning to appear. He didn't want a desk job. He didn't want politics. But he felt the weight of Lusamine's hand in his, shaking slightly. He felt the aura of the island, chaotic and scared. He squeezed her hand back. I'm not going anywhere, Ash said into the microphone. The feedback whined. Pikachu let out a triumphant Pika. Lusamine smiled. It was the first genuine smile she had worn in years. Chapter 2, The Gilded Cage. Ash Ketchum woke up drowning in silk. He gasped, sitting bolt upright, his hand instinctively reaching for a pokeball that wasn't on his belt because he wasn't wearing a belt. He wasn't even wearing his clothes. He was dressed in pajamas that felt more expensive than his entire house in Pallet Town, a shimmering silver material that regulated his body temperature perfectly. Pika. Pikachu was sprawled on a pillow the size of a Snorlax, looking groggy and surrounded by an empty platter of high-grade berry tarts. The electric mouse yawned, stretching until his back popped, and then flopped back down into the luxury. Ash rubbed his face, the memories of the previous day crashing down on him. The ultra space. The poison. The screaming. And then the declaration in the atrium. Supreme Guardian. He swung his legs out of the bed. The room was massive, a suite located at the very pinnacle of the Aether mansion. One wall was entirely glass, offering a panoramic view of the artificial island paradise below. From this height, the employees looked like white ants scurrying through a maze of chrome and greenery. It was beautiful. It was a fortress. It was a cage. The door to the suite chimed, a soft, melodic tone, and slid open before Ash could answer. Lusamine walked in. She looked immaculate. The trauma of the ultra-deep sea seemed to have been erased, at least on the surface. Her hair was styled in that defy-gravity geometric wave, and she wore a tailored white dress suit with gold accents. She carried a tablet in one hand and a garment bag in the other. But Ash, attuned to the subtle frequencies of living things, saw the cracks. He saw the way her fingers gripped the tablet too tightly, the way her eyes darted to the corners of the room as if checking for tentacles, and the slight tremor in her breath when the door hissed shut behind her. "Good morning," she said. Her voice was steady, practiced. "I trust the bed was acceptable. It utilizes memory foam derived from Ditto's cellular structure, synthetic, of course." "It's a lot," Ash said, standing up. He felt exposed without his hat. "Lusamine, about yesterday was necessary," she interrupted, walking over to the bed. She set the garment bag down. "And today is critical. Faba has called an emergency session of the board of directors. He intends to have me declared mentally compromised." She turned to him, her green eyes locking onto his brown ones. "If he succeeds, the international police will seize the Foundation. They will dissect the ultra beasts we have in stasis. They will likely imprison Solgaleo if he returns. And they will bury everything we know about the threats still out there." Ash looked at the garment bag. "And this?" "Uniform," Lusamine said. She reached out, her hand hovering near his shoulder, then resting there. The contact was brief, but heavy. "You are the executive director now, Ash. You cannot walk into that boardroom looking like a vagrant from Kanto. I need them to respect you. I need them to fear you." Ash unzipped the bag. Inside wasn't a suit, exactly. It was a fusion of formal wear and tactical gear. A high-collared white coat with gold trim, similar to the Aether uniform but cut for mobility, reinforced with lightweight impact plating. And there, resting on the hanger, was a new hat. It was white, with the Aether symbol stitched in gold on the front. Ash stared at it. He felt a phantom weight on his head, his old hat, the symbol of his journey. This felt like a uniform for a war he hadn't enlisted in. "I'm not a director," Ash said quietly. "I'm a trainer." "You are what the world needs you to be," Lusamine whispered. She stepped closer, invading his personal space, her scent of lilies and cold ozone enveloping him. She reached up and adjusted the collar of his pajama shirt, her fingers brushing his neck. Her touch was cool. "I cannot do this alone, Ash. My mind, it is still piecing itself together. If I go into that room alone, Faba will tear me apart. Be my anchor." Ash looked at Pikachu. The mouse offered a supportive chirp, ears perked. Ash sighed, the sound resigned but firm. He grabbed the coat. "Fine," Ash said. "But if I wear this, we do things my way." Lusamine smiled. It wasn't the manic smile of the mother beast, nor the polite smile of the president. It was sharp, predatory, and genuinely pleased. I'm counting on it. The boardroom was a shark tank disguised as a meeting space. A long table of black obsidian dominated the room, surrounded by holograms of off-site investors and the physical presence of the Foundation's department heads. At the head of the table sat Faba. He looked smug behind his rose-tinted glasses, shuffling a stack of physical papers, a power move in a digital world. The bylaws are clear, Faba was saying, his voice oily. Article 4, Section C states that in the event of the President's psychological incapacitation, executive authority reverts to the branch chief until an external audit is conducted. We all saw the footage. President Lusamine was compromised. Compromised, a hologram of an investor echoed. Unstable. Exactly, Faba nodded. For the safety of the shareholders and the Pokemon, we must. The doors didn't open. They slid apart with a hiss that sounded like a warning. Ash walked in first. The transformation was startling. The white coat fit him perfectly, emphasizing the lean, corded muscle of a veteran traveler. He didn't walk with the swagger of a child, he moved with the economy of a predator. His boots made no sound on the floor. Pikachu sat on his shoulder, cheeks sparking with a low, threatening hum. Lusamine followed a step behind him, her hands clasped behind her back. You're sitting in my chair, Faba, Lusamine said pleasantly. Faba blanched, but he held his ground. President. This is a closed session. And, he has no clearance here. Ash didn't stop until he was standing next to Faba. He looked down. Ash wasn't tall, but in that moment, he loomed. Move, Ash said. Excuse me. Faba sputtered, standing up, indignation warring with fear. Young man, you may be a skilled battler, but you have no authority in this room. This is a place of business, of law. You cannot simply. Ash slammed his hand onto the table. It wasn't a violent strike, but the sheer suddenness of it made 3 board members flinch. Greninja, Ash said softly. From the shadow cast by the table, a webbed hand reached up and grabbed Faba's tie. Faba shrieked as he was yanked downward, his face coming inches from the obsidian surface. Greninja materialized from the floor, eyes narrowed, tongue scarf wrapped loose but ready. This isn't a business anymore, Faba, Ash said, his voice calm, conversational. It's a rescue operation. And you're interfering. Ash looked around the table, making eye contact with every hologram and human. The president isn't incapacitated. She was attacked. By an enemy you didn't see coming because you were too busy burying your heads in spreadsheets. This is outrageous, a board member shouted. Who is this boy? I am the executive director, Ash said, the title tasting strange in his tongue, but he owned it. And as of this morning, I am conducting a full audit of all Sector B projects. Starting with yours, Faba. Faba, still held by Greninja, went pale. That requires level 5 clearance. The international police are not here, Lusamine interjected, stepping forward. She placed a hand on the back of the chair Faba had vacated. But I am. And I have designated Ash Ketchum as my proxy. Any refusal to cooperate with him will be treated as an act of corporate espionage and treason against the Foundation. She looked down at Faba. Release him, Greninja. Greninja let go. Faba scrambled back, straightening his tie, his face flushed with humiliation and rage. You'll regret this, Faba hissed. You can't run an organization this size with gumption and Pokemon battles. Ash sat down in the chair at the head of the table. He didn't slouch. He looked at Faba with eyes that had seen the end of the world multiple times. Watch me, Ash said. Now. Where are the keys to the sub-basement? The descent into the bowels of Aether Paradise felt like descending into the belly of a beast. The elevators were glass, passing through layers of the artificial island. First, the conservation decks, lush, green, filled with recovering Pokemon. Then the staff quarters. Then the labs. And then, deeper. Sector B, Wick said, typing a code into the heavy blast door. Her hands were shaking slightly. Mr. Ketchum, you have to understand. Faba compartmentalized everything. Most of the staff down here think they're working on renewable energy or medicinal synthesis. And what are they really working on? Ash asked. He was walking flanked by Lusamine and Wick. Pikachu was on the floor now, sniffing the air, ears flattened. Weaponization, Lusamine answered. Her voice was brittle. The Beast Killer Project. I authorized the funding years ago. I thought I was protecting us. The doors hissed open. The lab was cold, lit by harsh blue strip lighting. It was filled with rows of stasis tanks, humming servers, and scientists in hazmat suits who froze when they saw the procession enter. Ash walked down the center aisle. He looked at the screens. Schematic diagrams of ultra beasts being dissected. Energy output readings that were off the charts. He stopped in front of a massive containment cell at the far end of the room. The glass was 3 inches thick. Inside, the air was freezing, filled with cryogenic mist. Something was moving in the mist. Type, null, Ash whispered. Prototype Unit 03, Wick corrected nervously. The others, failed. This one rejected the RKS system. It went berserk 3 days ago. We've been keeping it heavily sedated. As if hearing her, the creature inside slammed against the glass. Tum. The entire room vibrated. It was a chimera, a mismatched body of insect, mammal, and avian traits, capped with a heavy, jagged helmet designed to suppress its power. The helmet looked painful, bolted directly onto the creature's head. Its eyes, visible through the slits of the mask, were wild, bloodshot, and filled with agony. Increase the sedative, a scientist shouted, running to a console. It's reacting to their presence. Stop, Ash ordered. Sir, if we don't sedate it, it will breach containment, the scientist yelled, hand hovering over a red button. I said stop. Ash's voice cracked like a whip. He walked up to the glass. The beast slammed against it again, claws screeching on the reinforced surface. It roared, a sound of pure, distorted rage. Ash placed his hand on the glass. He closed his eyes. Aura. It wasn't magic. It was empathy weaponized. Ash reached out with his senses, bypassing the glass, the helmet, the anger. He felt the creature's heart. It was beating so fast it was fluttering. He felt the heat of the helmet clamps digging into its flesh. He felt the confusion. Why does it hurt? Why is it dark? Ash, be careful, Lusamine warned, stepping closer, her hand reaching for a pokeball. It's scared, Ash murmured. It thinks we're going to hurt it again. Ash opened his eyes. They were glowing with that faint, azure light. Open the door, Ash said. The lab went dead silent. Mr. Ketchum, Wick squeaked. That is a biological weapon designed to kill gods. If you open that door, it will kill everyone in this room. It won't, Ash said. Open it. That's an order. Wick looked at Lusamine. Lusamine looked at the back of Ash's head. She saw the tension in his shoulders, the absolute lack of hesitation. She remembered the ultra-deep sea. She remembered him diving into the void. Do it, Lusamine commanded. Wick trembled, but she swiped her card. Disengaging magnetic locks. May Arceus help us. The heavy seals clanked. The door hissed. Ash stepped inside the containment unit. The mist swirled around him. The air was freezing. Type, null froze. It crouched low, a growl rumbling deep in its chest. It was huge, easily taller than Ash, its claws capable of shredding steel. Ash didn't assume a combat stance. He didn't reach for a pokeball. He just stood there, hands open, palms up. "Hey," Ash said softly. The beast lunged. "Ash!" Lusamine screamed. Ash didn't move. The beast stopped inches from him, the wind of its movement blowing Ash's hair back. It was confused. Why wasn't the small thing running? Why wasn't it attacking? Ash took a step forward. The beast snapped its jaws. "It hurts, doesn't it?" Ash said, his voice vibrating with the aura. "The mask. It's heavy." He projected calm. He projected the feeling of cool water, of sunlight, of safety. "Type," Null whimpered. The sound was heartbreakingly small coming from such a monster. Ash reached up. Slowly. Deliberately. He touched the cold metal of the helmet. "I can't take it off yet," Ash whispered to the beast. "But I promise. I'm going to get you out of here. No more needles. No more cold." The chimera leaned into his hand. It pushed its masked head against Ash's chest, shivering. Ash wrapped his arms around the cold metal plating of the beast's neck. He looked over the creature's shoulder, through the glass, directly at the scientists. His eyes were hard. "Shut it down," Ash said, his voice muffled by the glass but clear enough to be read on his lips. "Shut down the torture protocols. If I find out anyone hurts this Pokemon again, you answer to me." Lusamine watched through the glass, her hand covering her mouth. She had spent millions creating a beast to fight the Ultra Beasts. She had created a monster. Ash had walked in and turned it into a puppy in 30 seconds. She felt a strange sensation in her chest. It wasn't fear anymore. It was pride. And something hotter, sharper. She watched him stroke the beast's flank, murmuring to it. "He is a king," she thought. "A king without a crown." Night fell over Aether Paradise. The crisis in the labs had been managed. Ash had spent 3 hours personally reviewing the care protocols for the prototype, which he had nicknamed Silvally after the beast seemed to respond to the word. Now, he stood on the balcony of the executive suite, leaning on the railing. The tropical air was warm, smelling of salt and hibiscus. He was exhausted. Bone-deep tired. The glass door slid open. Lusamine stepped out. She had changed out of her suit into a flowing silk robe, holding 2 glasses of wine. "You don't drink," she said, realizing her mistake, and set 1 glass down on the table. "I'll have the kitchen send up some moo milk. Or perhaps ketchup." Ash chuckled, a tired sound. "Water is fine." She came to stand beside him at the railing. For a long time, they didn't speak. They just watched the moonlight ripple on the ocean. "You were incredible today," Lusamine said quietly. "I was angry," Ash corrected. "There's a difference." "Is there?" Lusamine turned to face him, leaning her hip against the railing. The moonlight turned her pale hair into silver. "Anger, when directed properly, is a powerful fuel. You took control of this foundation in a day, Ash. Faba is terrified of you. The staff is in awe of you." "I don't want them to be in awe," Ash said, looking at his hands. "I just want them to do the right thing." "That is why they are in awe," Lusamine murmured. She reached out, her fingers tracing the line of his jaw. Ash didn't pull away. He looked at her. Her eyes were soft, the madness of the Nihilego completely gone, replaced by a profound, searching intensity. "I have spent my life surrounded by people who want something from me," she said. "Power. Money. Access to the research. Even my children, they wanted a mother I couldn't be." Her thumb brushed his lower lip. "You are the first person who just wanted me to be safe." The distance between them closed. It wasn't a rush of passion, it was a gravitational pull. Ash felt the heat radiating from her. He saw the vulnerability she hid from the world. "Lusamine," he warned softly. "I'm not. I'm not good at this. The politics. The suits. I don't need you to be good at politics, she whispered, her face inches from his. I have enough politics for both of us. I need you to be the fire. I need you to be the one who opens the cage. She leaned in, resting her forehead against his. It was an intimate gesture, a sharing of breath. Stay with me, Ash. Not as a guardian. As my partner. Ash closed his eyes, breathing in her scent. He felt the aura of the island shifting. It was no longer chaotic. It was centering around them. Around her. Around him. I'm here, he whispered back. Deep within Sector B, in the server room. The main terminal hummed. The screensaver bounced idly. Suddenly, the screen flickered. A line of code appeared. Then another. Error. Spatial anomaly detected. Sensor 4, offline. Sensor 5, offline. The data wasn't just being corrupted. It was being eaten. On the screen, a readout of the ultra wormhole frequency appeared. Usually, it was a wave. Now, it was flatlining. Something was in the space between the dimensions. Something that didn't reflect light, didn't emit heat, and didn't scream. The screen flickered black. Then, a single word appeared in green text, typed by no human hand. Hungry. The screen cracked. Chapter 3, Sovereign Territory. The radar in the command center didn't ping. It screamed. 12 unidentified bogies entering airspace, the technician shouted, his voice cracking. Signature matches International Police Heavy Transport. No transponder codes. They're running silent. On the main screen, the blue calm of the Alolan sky was marred by the approaching formation. Black dropships, sleek and predatory, cut through the clouds in a V formation. They weren't coming to talk. They were coming to besiege. In the executive suite, the mood was not panicked. It was silent. Ash stood before a full-length mirror. He wore the white ether coat, but he hadn't fastened it yet. His hands were steady, but his mind was racing, calculating variables. 12 ships. Probably 2 squads of elites per ship. Total hostile force, roughly 150. Stop thinking so loud, a soft voice murmured. Lusamine stepped up behind him. She wore a dress of severe black and gold, armor disguised as fashion. She reached around him, her hands taking the collar of his coat. They aren't here for a chat, Lusamine, Ash said, watching her reflection. No, she agreed. Her fingers were cool against his neck as she fastened the top button. They are here for me. Valerian doesn't leave his office in Sinnoh unless he intends to bury someone. She moved to his tie. It was a complex knot, one Ash had never bothered to learn. Lusamine's fingers danced over the silk with practiced ease. She was close enough that he could feel the warmth of her body, a stark contrast to the cold calculation in her eyes. He will claim I am insane, she whispered, tightening the knot. He will claim the Foundation is a threat to global stability. He will try to provoke you. He will try to make you look like a child playing with weapons you don't understand. She smoothed the lapels of his coat, her palms resting flat against his chest. She could feel his heartbeat. Slow. Powerful. Like a war drum beating a resting rhythm. Let him try, Ash said. Lusamine looked up, meeting his eyes in the mirror. For a moment, her mask of the imperious president slipped. Valerian uses shadow assets, she warned. Pokemon with their hearts sealed. They don't feel pain. They don't feel fear. They are just math. Ash turned around to face her. He took her hands in his. His grip was calloused, rough from years of climbing mountains and throwing pokeballs. Math doesn't win battles, Ash said. Spirit does. He squeezed her hands, then let go. He grabbed the white hat with the gold emblem from the dresser and placed it on his head. He pulled the brim down low, shading his eyes. "Stay close to me," he said. "Always," she replied. The wind on the landing deck was whipping the ocean into whitecaps. The roar of the approaching engines drowned out the cries of the wind gulls. Ash stood at the center of the platform. Flanking him were his generals, Pikachu on his shoulder, electricity arcing between his cheeks, Lucario standing stoic and arms crossed, and Incineroar, flexing claws that looked capable of tearing through tank armor. Behind him stood Lusamine, Wick, and a terrified Faba. The lead dropship, a massive black vessel marked with the jagged IP logo, hovered overhead. The downdraft flattened the grass of the ornamental gardens. Ropes dropped. Troops descended. They weren't the standard officer jennies. These were clad in matte black riot gear, faces obscured by tactical visors. They hit the ground in perfect unison, weapons raised, capture stylers modified into rifles. A ramp extended from the hovering ship. High Commissioner Valerian walked down. He was a man who looked like he had been carved out of gray marble. Tall, gaunt, with hair the color of steel wool and eyes that looked like broken glass. He wore a gray trench coat over a pristine suit. He carried no weapon, but the air around him felt heavy, suffocating. He walked across the deck, stopping 10 yards from Ash. His soldiers fanned out, creating a semicircle of threat. Valerian didn't look at Ash. He looked past him, directly at Lusamine. "Lusamine Aether," Valerian said. His voice was dry, raspy, like paper sliding over stone. "By order of the International Police High Council, you are hereby detained under Article 9 of the Global Preservation Act. Charges: reckless endangerment of reality, unauthorized experimentation on extradimensional entities, and mental incompetence." He gestured with a gloved hand. "Secure her. Secure the assets. If the boy resists, neutralize him." 2 soldiers stepped forward. "One step," Ash said. It wasn't a shout. It was a statement of fact. The soldiers hesitated. Ash stepped forward, placing himself physically between Valerian and Lusamine. "You have no jurisdiction here," Ash said. Valerian finally looked at him. He looked at Ash the way a scientist looks at a lab rat that has chewed through its cage. "Ash Ketchum," Valerian droned. "Kanto champion. Orange Islands victor. Savior of Kalos. A lengthy resume for a truant." Valerian took a step closer. "This is not a gym battle, boy. This is grown-up business. Aether Paradise is an artificial structure in international waters. Maritime law dictates that in the event of a leadership crisis, the governing body, us, assumes control." "There is no leadership crisis," Ash said calmly. "President Lusamine is standing right there. She is lucid. She is in command. She was possessed by a parasite 48 hours ago," Valerian countered smoothly. "She is a liability. Now step aside, or I will have you removed." Ash crossed his arms. Lucario mirrored the pose. "Aether Paradise is a sovereign entity recognized by the Alolan League," Ash said, quoting the briefing Lusamine had drilled into him the night before. "Article 4, Section 2. Any unauthorized military incursion is an act of war. You are invading." Ash tilted his head, his eyes flashing under the brim of his hat. "So, Commissioner, did you bring enough pokeballs for a war?" The silence that followed was heavy enough to crush a Geodude. Valerian's eyes narrowed. "You think your reputation protects you? You think because you saved the world a few times, you are untouchable?" Valerian reached into his coat. He pulled out a premier ball. It was painted black. "Reputation is a story people tell themselves to feel safe. Ideal in reality." He threw the ball. There was no flash of white light. There was an eruption of darkness. Shadows pooled on the deck, swirling like oil. From the center of the darkness, a figure rose. It was a Darkrai. But it looked wrong. Its blue eyes were dull. The red collar around its neck was metallic, blinking with a steady, rhythmic light. It didn't float with the ghostly grace of its species, it hovered with mechanical precision. Asset 0 to 1, Valerian commanded. Remove the obstacle. The Darkrai raised a hand. A sphere of pure void, dark void, materialized instantly, humming with sleep-inducing energy. Lucario, Ash said. He didn't shout a move. He didn't need to. Lucario vanished. Boom. A shockwave of air blasted across the deck. Lucario had closed the distance in a blur of speed, extreme speed, slamming a bone rush staff made of blue energy into the dark void sphere before it could launch. The explosion of energy kicked up a cloud of smoke. Engage, Valerian said, bored. The Darkrai melted into the floor, shadow sneak. It moved as a two-dimensional shadow, racing toward Ash's feet. Aura sight, Ash murmured, closing his eyes. He could see the shadow. Not with his eyes, but with his soul. He felt the cold, empty void moving across the deck. He felt Lucario's burning spirit waiting for the signal. 6 o'clock. Down smash. Lucario leaped into the air, spun, and drove a fist encased in steel into the floorboards behind Ash. Crack. The deck splintered. The impact forced the Darkrai out of the shadows, stumbling back. Ice beam, Valerian ordered. The Darkrai recovered instantly, unnatural fast. A beam of freezing energy shot toward Lucario. Detect. Lucario shifted his weight. The beam missed by a millimeter, freezing the air next to his ear. Aura sphere. Full power. Lucario cupped his hands. A sphere of blue energy, swirling and dense, formed in a microsecond. He thrust it forward. The Darkrai crossed its arms to block. The impact sent the mythical Pokémon skidding back 20 feet, its heels carving grooves into the metal plating of the deck. Valerian frowned. He tapped a button on his wrist. The red collar on the Darkrai flared. The Pokémon twitched, a spasm of pain, and its eyes glowed brighter. Override limiters, Valerian muttered. Dark pulse. Wide dispersal. The Darkrai shrieked, a digital, distorted sound. It unleashed a wave of purple energy that wasn't aimed at Lucario. It was aimed at everything. Ash. Lusamine. The Foundation. It's not aiming. Wick screamed. Ash's eyes snapped open. He saw the wave coming. He saw Lusamine flinch behind him. Pikachu. Electroweb. Use the grid. Pikachu leaped off Ash's shoulder. He didn't aim for the Darkrai. He aimed for the lightning rods lining the deck. Pika Pika Chuu. Pikachu fired a web of electricity that connected with the rods, creating a massive, electrified fence of yellow energy in front of the group. The dark pulse slammed into the electroweb. Purple and yellow energy clashed, sparking and hissing. Hold it. Ash roared, his own aura flaring blue around his body. He was feeding his energy into Pikachu, supporting the little mouse. Now, Lucario. Through the gap. Lucario didn't hesitate. He dove through the electroweb, shielded by his own aura. He emerged on the other side, right in front of the Darkrai. Close combat. It was brutal. Lucario unleashed a flurry of punches and kicks, moving faster than the eye could follow. The Darkrai, controlled by a computer algorithm, tried to calculate the pattern. But there was no pattern. There was only instinct. Fighting spirit. The chaotic, beautiful rhythm of a Pokémon and trainer in perfect sync. Lucario landed a final, devastating uppercut to the Darkrai's chin. The mythical Pokémon was launched into the air, crashing down at Valerian's feet. The Darkrai groaned, the red light on its collar flickering and dying. It didn't get up. Ash stepped forward. His coat snapped in the wind. The blue glow of his aura faded, leaving him standing there, human but terrifying. "Your math is wrong," Ash said. Valerian looked down at his defeated asset. He showed no emotion. No anger. No surprise. He simply recalled the Pokémon into the black ball. "Interesting," Valerian said. "The variance in power output, it shouldn't be possible without enhancements." He looked up at Ash. For the first time, there was a glimmer of respect in the cold eyes. Or perhaps it was just recalculation. "You have made your point, Director Ketchum." Valerian signaled to his troops. The rifles lowered. However, Valerian continued, buttoning his coat. "You have also confirmed my hypothesis. You and this Foundation possess power that cannot remain unchecked. Today, you have maritime law. Tomorrow." He let the threat hang in the air. "We are leaving." Valerian turned on his heel. He walked back up the ramp. The soldiers filed in behind him, moving like robots. As the ramp closed, Valerian paused and looked back. "Enjoy your throne, boy," he called out. "But remember, the higher you build, the longer the fall." The dropships roared to life. The wind kicked up again, blowing Ash's hat off. He didn't reach for it. He watched them ascend, watched them turn, watched them vanish into the clouds. Only then did his shoulders slump. "Ash." Lusamine was there instantly. She grabbed his arm, steadying him. "Are you hurt?" she demanded, scanning him frantically. "I'm fine," Ash breathed, adrenaline fading, leaving him shaky. "Just, hungry." Lusamine laughed. It was a breathless, jagged sound, bordering on hysterical, but it was real. She looked at the spot where the Darkrai had fallen. Then she looked at the employees peeking out from the doors, the guards who had watched the whole thing. "You defended us," she whispered. "You actually sent them away." Ash picked up his hat. He dusted it off and placed it back on his head. "This is our home now," Ash said. He looked at her, his eyes serious. "Nobody takes it." 1 hour later. The press room. The feed was broadcasting live to every region. Kanto, Johto, Sinnoh, Unova, Kalos, Alola, Galar. Lusamine stood at the podium. She looked regal, untouchable. Ash stood at her side, arms crossed, looking stoic. "The rumors of my incapacitation were greatly exaggerated," Lusamine told the cameras. "The Aether Foundation remains strong. We remain committed to the protection of Pokémon." She paused. "However, in light of recent threats to our sovereignty, we are announcing a change in policy. Aether Paradise is no longer just a research facility." She turned to Ash. The cameras followed her gaze. "We are declaring Aether Paradise an independent sanctuary state. Under the protection of the Executive Director, Ash Ketchum." Ash stepped up to the mic. He looked into the lens. Somewhere in Pallet Town, Delia Ketchum was dropping a plate. Somewhere in a lab, Professor Oak was spitting out his tea. Somewhere in the headquarters of Team Rocket, Giovanni was frowning. "We welcome anyone who wants to help Pokémon," Ash said simply. "But if you come to hurt them, you answer to me." Epilogue, the International Police Flagship. Valerian sat in his office, watching the broadcast on a monitor. The room was dark, lit only by the screen. "Sir," a subordinate said from the doorway. "Mission failed. Shall we prepare a secondary assault?" "No," Valerian said softly. He rewound the footage. He paused it on the moment Lucario dove through the lightning. "Brute force will not work. The boy is an anomaly. He bends reality around him through sheer force of will." Valerian opened a secure channel. The screen changed to display a logo that wasn't the International Police. It was an ancient symbol, looking like a shattered star. Initiate Project Eclipse, Valerian spoke into the comms. And contact our assets in Alola. If we cannot break the boy, we must break the ground he stands on. He looked at the frozen image of Lusamine's hand resting on Ash's shoulder. He has an anchor, Valerian mused. Sever the anchor, and the ship drifts. Chapter 4, Echoes of the Deep. The nightmare didn't start with a monster. It started with a song. It was a beautiful, glass-shattering melody that vibrated through the marrow of Lusamine's bones. It sounded like children singing underwater. It sounded like home. Lusamine bolted upright in the dark, a scream dying in her throat, strangling her. She scrambled backward, tangling herself in the silk sheets, until her back hit the headboard. Her chest heaved. Her eyes darted around the executive suite. The shadows in the corners of the room weren't static. They were writhing. The moonlight filtering through the curtains looked like gelatinous tentacles reaching for her. No, she whispered, clawing at her arms. She could feel the toxins under her skin again, the cold slime of the Nihilego. Get out. Get out of my head. Mother, the walls whispered. We miss you, Mother. I am not your mother. Lusamine shrieked, pressing her hands over her ears. She curled into a ball, trembling so violently her teeth chattered. The door to the adjoining room slid open. There was no hesitation. No sleepy confusion. Ash was there instantly. He was barefoot, wearing only sweatpants, his chest bare. He didn't turn on the lights. He knew instinctively that light would just make the shadows sharper. Lusamine, he said. His voice was low, cutting through the phantom singing. He crossed the room in 3 strides. He didn't grab her. He knelt beside the bed, bringing his face level with hers. Look at me, he commanded. Not a shout. An anchor point. Lusamine looked up, her eyes dilated and unseeing. They're here. Ash, they're in the room. Can't you hear them? Ash closed his eyes for a second, scanning the room with aura. There's nothing here. Just us. You're lying, she gasped, shrinking away. You just want to keep me calm. They're going to take me back. Ash climbed onto the bed. He reached out and took her wrists, pulling her hands away from her ears. His grip was firm, grounding. Feel that? Ash asked. He pulsed his aura, a warm, steady thrum that traveled from his hands into her skin. It felt like standing next to a fireplace in winter. That's me. That's real. The cold isn't real. Lusamine stared at him. The blue glow of his eyes in the dark was the only thing she could focus on. Slowly, the writhing shadows resolved back into furniture. The singing faded into the hum of the air conditioning. She collapsed forward, her forehead hitting his shoulder. She was soaked in cold sweat. I can't do this, she sobbed, the imperious facade shattering completely. I'm broken, Ash. Every time I close my eyes, I'm back in the deep sea. Ash wrapped his arms around her, holding her while she shook. He rubbed circles on her back, feeling the sharp ridges of her spine. She was too thin. She hadn't been eating. You're not broken, Ash said into her hair. You're recovering. It's different. He pulled back slightly, looking at her. Get dressed, he said. Lusamine blinked, wiping tears from her cheeks. What? It's 3 in the morning. I don't care, Ash said, standing up and offering her a hand. We're leaving. Leaving? To where? The medical wing. Ash grinned. It was a crooked, mischievous grin that made him look years younger. No. We're breaking out. The sun rose over Akala Island, painting the sky in violent shades of orange and violet. They sat on a cliff overlooking the Wella Volcano Park. They weren't wearing white. Ash wore a simple black t-shirt and jeans he'd dug out of his backpack. Lusamine wore a sundress and a wide-brimmed hat she had bought from a tourist shop at the ferry terminal, hiding her distinctive hair. She held a malasada in one hand, staring at it suspiciously. "It's grease and sugar," she said. "Nutritionally void." "It's delicious," Ash countered, biting into his own. "Eat it. That's an order from the executive director." Lusamine let out a small, startled laugh and took a bite. The sweetness exploded on her tongue. It tasted like normalcy. "Better?" Ash asked. "Different," she admitted. She looked out at the jungle below. "Why did we come here, Ash?" "There are 1,000 things to do at the Foundation. The budget reports, the reconstruction." "That place is a hospital for you right now," Ash said, leaning back on his hands. "You can't heal in the place where you got sick." He pointed down the trail. A group of wild salandit were scampering over the rocks, fighting over a berry. "Look at them," Ash said. "Specimens," Lusamine said automatically. "Poison/fire type. Pheromone generators." "No," Ash corrected gently. "Look closer. They're playing." Lusamine adjusted her sunglasses. She watched. The salandit weren't just fighting, they were tumbling, chasing, yipping at each other. One of them fell off a rock, and another paused to nudge it back up. "They have lives," Ash said softly. "They have families. They aren't data points, Lusamine. They aren't things to be protected or frozen in glass. They're just, living." Lusamine lowered the malasada. She looked at Ash. He was watching the Pokémon with a look of pure, unadulterated joy. "I forgot," she whispered. "I forgot how to look at them without seeing what I could take from them." "That's why the beasts drove you crazy," Ash said, turning to her. "You tried to control something that just wanted to live. You can't control life, Lusamine. You have to ride the wave." Lusamine looked down at her hands. "I don't know who I am if I'm not the president. If I'm not the one in control." Ash reached over and brushed a crumb of sugar from her cheek. His touch lingered. "You're Lusamine," he said. "The woman who likes sweet buns and looks really good in a cheap hat." She felt a blush rise up her neck, hot and sudden. "You are impertinent." "I'm honest." For a moment, the air between them was charged. The sounds of the jungle faded. Lusamine leaned in, drawn by the gravity that always seemed to surround him. "Bzzzt." Ash's pocket vibrated. He sighed, the moment shattering. He pulled out his Rotom phone. "Wick?" "Ash." Wick's voice was high-pitched, bordering on panic. "Where are you?" "The sensors in the sub-basement, they're screaming." Ash's expression instantly hardened. The boy on the picnic vanished, the guardian returned. "Is it an ultra beast?" "No," Wick cried. "It's nothing. It's a void. The sensors aren't picking up a creature, they're picking up an absence of reality. It's eating Sector B." Ash stood up, pulling Lusamine to her feet. "We're on our way," he said. "Evacuate the lower levels. Seal the bulkheads." He hung up and looked at Lusamine. The fear was back in her eyes. "It's okay," Ash said, grabbing her hand. "We ride the wave. Remember?" When they arrived back at Aether Paradise, the situation was critical. The elevators to the lower levels were locked down. Red emergency lights bathed the corridors in blood-colored gloom. Sirens wailed a low, rhythmic drone. They met Wick at the heavy blast doors of Sector B. She was covered in soot. "The containment field failed," Wick gasped. "It started in the old energy reactor room. A rift opened, but nothing came out. Instead, the blackness just expanded. It's like a fog. Anything it touches just stops working. Electronics, lights, people." "People?" Lusamine asked, her voice sharp. "Who is down there?" Team 4. 6 scientists. They're trapped in the control room. We lost contact 10 minutes ago. Lusamine moved toward the console. I'll override the lockdown. We have to send in the recovery drones. Drones dropped out the second they crossed the threshold, Wick said. It eats signals, Madam President. Ash walked up to the heavy glass porthole in the blast door. He peered inside. It was terrifying. The corridor beyond wasn't dark, it was gone. A swirling, inky black mist filled the space. It didn't look like smoke. It looked like static television fuzz given 3 dimensions. It felt hungry. Not with malice, but with the mindless entropy of a black hole. The nullity, Ash whispered. What? Lusamine asked. The thing between the dimensions, Ash said, turning to them. I felt it when we were coming back. It's what scared the Ultra Beasts. It's leaking through. He checked his belt. Pikachu, Lucario, Incineroar. Open the door, Ash said. You can't go in there, Lusamine said, stepping in front of the keypad. Ash, that isn't a Pokemon. You can't battle it. If you touch that fog, it will unmake you. There are 6 people down there, Ash said calmly. If I don't go, they die. Then let them die. Lusamine shouted, her composure cracking. I can't lose you. I just got you. The raw honesty of the scream silenced the hallway. Wick looked at her shoes. Ash stepped closer to Lusamine. He took her face in his hands. I'm coming back, he promised. I have a date to finish. We never got to the second Malasada. He kissed her forehead. It was brief, warm, and felt like a goodbye. He moved her aside gently. Wick. Open it. Just enough for me to slip through. Then seal it behind me. Ash, do it. Wick typed the code. The hydraulics hissed. The door cracked open 6 inches. Cold air rushed out. It smelled of ozone and old dust. Ash turned sideways and slipped into the dark. Seal it, he shouted from the other side. The door slammed shut. Lusamine pressed her hands against the cold metal, sliding down to her knees. She stared at the monitor, which showed only static. Don't die, she whispered to the static. Please, don't die. Inside, the cold was absolute. Ash couldn't see his hand in front of his face. The black fog swallowed the light from his aura. Pikachu, stay in the ball, Ash murmured. You can't fight this. He was alone. He moved forward, feeling his way along the wall. The silence was heavy. It pressed against his eardrums. Hungry. The word wasn't heard, it was felt. A vibration in his teeth. You're not eating anyone today, Ash gritted out. He closed his eyes. If he couldn't see, he didn't need eyes. Aura. He flared it. It was harder here. The fog tried to consume the energy, sucking it away like a leech. Ash had to push, forcing his spirit outward, creating a bubble of blue light around him. He saw them. 6 faint sparks of life huddled in the room at the end of the hall. Their fear was a beacon. Ash ran. The fog grew thicker. It felt like moving through molasses. His skin burned with cold. His lungs ached. The entropy was trying to break down the bonds of his atoms. Just a little further. He reached the control room door. It was locked. Lucario. Ash shouted, throwing the ball. Lucario materialized in a bubble of aura. He gasped, falling to one knee instantly under the pressure of the nullity. Break the door. Lucario roared, forcing himself up. A glowing bone staff materialized. He swung it with everything he had. Crash. The lock shattered. Ash kicked the door open. The 6 scientists were huddled in the corner, wearing emergency masks, their flashlights dead. "Get up!" Ash yelled. "Move!" "Director," one of them wheezed. "We can't see." "Follow the light." Ash expanded his aura, pushing it to the limit. He became a human lighthouse in the void. "Lucario, take the point. Get them to the exit." They scrambled into the hallway. The fog reacted. It surged, swirling into a vortex, trying to cut off their escape. It was sentient. It knew it was losing its meal. Ash stopped. "Go," he ordered the scientists. "Run." "Ash." Lucario barked, hesitating. "I said go." Lucario grabbed two scientists and shoved them forward. The group stumbled toward the blast door. Ash turned to face the darkness. The fog was forming a shape. A maw. A giant, toothless mouth of static. "You want light?" Ash growled. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a Z crystal. The Picashunium Z. He didn't have a Z-ring. He didn't need one. He held the crystal in his fist. "I'll give you light." He channeled every ounce of his aura into the crystal. It shattered. A blast of pure, golden electricity exploded outward from Ash's body. It wasn't a move. It was a supernova. Outside, the blast door shuddered violently. "Readings are spiking." Wick yelled. "Thermal output is equivalent to a miniature sun." "Open the door." Lusamine screamed. "Now. Now." Wick slammed the override. The doors parted. Smoke billowed out. The 6 scientists stumbled through, coughing, dragged by an exhausted Lucario. They collapsed on the floor. Lusamine didn't look at them. She looked into the smoke. "Ash." Silence. Then, a footstep. Ash walked out. He looked terrible. His clothes were shredded. His skin was gray, covered in frost burns. He was trembling so hard he could barely stand. The fog behind him recoiled, burned away by the flash, retreating back into the rift. Ash took 1 step, 2 steps. His eyes met Lusamine's. "Closed, the rift," he mumbled. His eyes rolled back. He pitched forward. "Ash." Lusamine moved faster than she had ever moved in her life. She caught him before he hit the floor. He was ice cold. His heart was beating so slowly it was terrifying. "Medical," she shrieked, her voice tearing her throat. "Get a stretcher." "Move." She cradled his head in her lap, rubbing his cheeks, trying to warm him. "You idiot," she sobbed. "You heroic, stupid idiot." Ash's eyelids fluttered. He looked up at her. He smiled, weak and tired. "Did everyone get out?" Lusamine looked at the scientists. They were alive. "Yes," she wept. "They're out. You saved them." "Good," Ash whispered. He tried to sit up. He failed. Lusamine didn't let him go. She stared at his face, the soot, the frost, the determination that even near death couldn't extinguish. The realization hit her like a physical blow. It wasn't just gratitude. It wasn't just need. She loved him. She loved his stupidity. She loved his fire. She loved that he would walk into hell for people he didn't even know. She didn't think. She didn't calculate. She leaned down and kissed him. It wasn't a gentle, movie star kiss. It was desperate. It tasted of salt, tears, and ozone. She kissed him like she was trying to breathe life back into him, and in doing so, breathe life back into herself. Ash stiffened for a second, then melted. His hand came up, weak and shaking, to tangle in her hair. He pulled her closer. For a long moment, the chaos of the hallway vanished. The alarms, the shouting medics, the fear, it all fell away. There was only the heat of their contact. Lusamine pulled back, breathless, her forehead resting against his. "Don't you ever," she whispered fiercely, "do that to me again." Ash blinked, his eyes losing focus but still smiling. "No promises," he breathed. And then he passed out. Lusamine held him, looking up at the ceiling with eyes that were no longer afraid. They were furious. And they were in love. "Wick," she said, her voice deadly calm. "Yes, Madam President. Prepare the sun chamber. We're going to heal him. And then." Lusamine looked back at the sealed door where the nullity waited. "Then we are going to figure out how to kill that thing." Chapter 5, The Tapu's Judgment. The recovery tank in the sun chamber hummed with a frequency that vibrated in the teeth. It was a golden sarcophagus of light and warmth, designed to simulate the restorative energy of the morning sun. Ash floated inside the suspension fluid, his eyes closed, breathing through a rebreather mask. The frostbite on his skin was fading, the gray pallor replaced by a healthy flush as the nanomachine-infused liquid repaired the cellular damage caused by the nullity. Lusamine stood outside the glass. She hadn't left the room in 12 hours. She pressed her hand against the warm surface of the tank. Her reflection ghosted over Ash's sleeping face. She looked tired, her makeup foregone, her hair tied back in a severe, practical knot. But she looked grounded. "His vitals are normalizing," Wick whispered, checking a datapad nearby. "The thermal shock was severe, but his physiology, it's abnormal. His aura seems to act as a secondary immune system. It's actively knitting his tissues back together." "He isn't normal," Lusamine murmured, not taking her eyes off him. "He's a singularity." Suddenly, the liquid in the tank began to bubble. Ash's eyes snapped open. They weren't brown. For a split second, they were pure, blinding azure. The alarms in the room screamed. "Warning! External pressure spike. Atmospheric anomaly detected." Ash tore the mask off his face. He pounded on the glass, mouthing one word. "Out." Lusamine didn't wait for the protocol. She slammed the manual release. The fluid drained in seconds. The glass hissed open. Ash stumbled out, wet and gasping, catching himself on the rim of the tank. Steam rose from his skin. "Ash." Lusamine grabbed a towel, throwing it over his shoulders. "You need to stabilize." "What is it?" Ash gripped her arm. His fingers were hot. He looked up, his gaze piercing through the ceiling of the chamber, through the layers of steel and concrete, to the sky above. "They're here," Ash rasped. "Who?" "The landlords." The sky above Aether Paradise had turned a bruised shade of purple. It wasn't a storm front. It was a convergence. The wind howled, but it didn't blow in one direction. It swirled around the artificial island like a cyclone. The ocean below was churning, waves smashing against the support pylons with enough force to shake the entire structure. Ash and Lusamine ran onto the main observation deck. Ash was dressed in fresh gear, black cargo pants and a tight-fitting black undershirt, his white director's coat thrown hastily over his shoulders like a cape. He was still barefoot. "Status report." Lusamine barked into her comms. "Madam President," the security chief's voice was garbled by static. "We have multiple breaches. Massive roots are tearing through the lower hull. The water filtration system is flooding. And there's lightning striking the shield generator. Targeted strikes." Ash walked to the edge of the deck. The wind whipped his wet hair into his eyes. "They think we're the threat," Ash shouted over the gale. "Who?" Lusamine demanded, joining him. For lights descended from the clouds. To the north, a streak of yellow lightning, Tapu Koko. To the south, a cloud of pink, psychic mist, Tapu Lele. To the east, a juggernaut of red bulldozing through the air, Tapu Bulu. To the west, a veil of mist and water, Tapu Fini. The island guardians of Alola. They hovered in a diamond formation, surrounding the floating paradise. They didn't look like the benevolent spirits of folklore. Their shells were closed, their postures aggressive. They radiated a pressure that made the air heavy, hard to breathe. The guardians, Lusamine whispered, horror dawning. Why? We protect this region. Because we opened the door, Ash said grimly. We touched the nullity. To them, we smell like the void. They think ether is the infection. Tapu Koko screeched, a sound like tearing metal. The sky cracked. A massive thunderbolt, thick as a redwood trunk, slammed into the ether paradise energy shield. Crack boom. The hexagonal force field flared gold, then buckled. Sparks rained down on the deck. They're going to sink us, Ash said. He reached for his belt. Pikachu. Lucario. Let's go. Ash, you can't fight gods. Lusamine yelled, grabbing his arm. You're barely recovered. Ash looked at her. He placed his hand over hers. I don't have to beat them, he said. I just have to get them to listen. And the only language they speak is force. He stepped away. Manage the defenses. Keep the shield up, or the island breaks apart. Lusamine grit her teeth. She stepped back, her eyes shifting from fear to command. She tapped her earpiece. All units. Reroute auxiliary power to the primary shield. Deploy the clefable core to the perimeter. Defensive formations only. Do not fire unless fired upon. She reached to her belt and threw a premier ball. Clefable. Light screen. Cover him. Her clefable materialized, a star-shaped pink barrier expanding instantly around Ash just as Tapu Lele launched a moonblast. The pink energy ball shattered against the screen. Ash didn't look back. He trusted her. Pikachu. Thunderbolt. Intercept Koko. Pikachu launched himself into the air, a yellow missile meeting the god of lightning mid-sky. The battle was not a duel. It was a natural disaster. Tapu Bulu slammed into the lower decks. Massive wooden horns grew from the steel plating, twisting and crushing the infrastructure. The island groaned. Lucario. Ash pointed down. Intercept Bulu. Keep him off the support struts. Use the steel against him. Flash cannon. Lucario dove off the balcony, plummeting toward the lower levels, charging a sphere of metallic energy. Tapu Fini sang a melody that caused a massive wave to rise from the ocean, threatening to swamp the landing strip. Greninja. Ash shouted, tossing the ball high. Water shuriken. Cut the wave. Greninja materialized in mid-air, spinning. He didn't fire one shuriken, he fired a barrage, slicing through the crest of the tidal wave, breaking its momentum before it could crash down. But the real threat was above. Tapu Koko was a blur of speed. He was faster than sound, zipping around the shield, looking for a weak point. Every time he passed, thunder rattled the windows. Ash stood in the center of the storm. He was the conductor. Pikachu, ride the wind. Iron Tail. Pikachu used the updraft from the storm, spinning his tail into steel. He clashed with Tapu Koko. Clang. The sound was deafening. Pikachu was thrown back, bouncing off Lusamine's light screen. Tapu Koko hovered, unharmed, chattering angrily. You, bring, rot. The voice echoed in Ash's head. It wasn't words, it was raw concept. We didn't bring it. Ash shouted back, projecting his aura upward. We're fighting it. Tapu Koko didn't listen. He began to glow with electric terrain. The air turned yellow. A massive discharge was building. He's going to overload the reactor, Lusamine shouted from the console. Ash. The shield can't take a direct Z move. Ash looked up. He couldn't reach Coco. Pikachu couldn't fly. He needed the sun. Ash closed his eyes. He reached out with his heart, past the storm, past the fear, calling for the one being that owed him a debt. The one being that answered to the light. Nebby! Ash roared. I need you. The clouds above the storm swirled. A beam of sunlight, pure and concentrated, pierced the gloom. From the light, a roar shook the heavens. Solgaleo descended like a meteor. The sun Pokémon didn't land. It swooped low, its metallic paws scrabbling for purchase on the air itself. Ash didn't hesitate. He ran. He leaped off the railing, over the 1,000-foot drop to the ocean. Lusamine screamed. Solgaleo caught him. Ash landed on the lion's back, grabbing the mane. He felt the intense heat of the beast, the power of a star contained in living metal. Let's show them the light. Ash yelled. Solgaleo roared and rocketed upward. The dogfight was legendary. Solgaleo and Tapu Koko tore through the sky, weaving between the support pylons of Aether Paradise. One was a streak of white gold, the other a jagged line of yellow. Tapu Koko fired thunderbolts. Solgaleo countered with Sunsteel Strike, spiraling through the electricity, unaffected. Ash clung to the back of the beast, his eyes watering from the speed. He wasn't directing Solgaleo, they were one mind. Left. Dive. Climb. We have to corner him. Ash shouted. Solgaleo surged forward, slamming into Tapu Koko midair. The impact sent the island guardian tumbling toward the main deck. Tapu Koko recovered instantly, hovering just above the glass roof of the conservatory. He spread his shell. He was preparing Guardian of Alola. The giant avatar form began to manifest, a titan of pure energy rising from the ground. If that fist came down, Aether Paradise would be crushed. Ash. Lusamine's voice cut through the comms. He's summoning the avatar. I know. Ash looked down. He saw Lusamine standing on the deck below, her clefable straining to hold the light screen against the pressure. She looked small, but she wasn't running. She was holding the line for him. Ash felt a surge of protectiveness so fierce it burned hotter than Solgaleo's mane. Solgaleo. Searing sunrays smash. But don't hit him, hit the attack. Ash pulled the Z crystal from his pocket, the Solganium Z. He crossed his arms. The pose was fluid, perfect. Solgaleo roared, its third eye opening. The two gods clashed. The avatar of Alola brought its massive fist down. Solgaleo became a spinning comet of fire and steel, launching upward to meet it. Boom! The impact turned the sky white. The sound vanished, replaced by a high-pitched ringing. The shockwave blew the windows out of the control tower. Lusamine was thrown backward, caught by her clefable. When the light faded, the scene was frozen. Tapu Koko hovered, panting. The avatar was gone. Solgaleo stood on the roof of the conservatory, growling low. Ash stood on Solgaleo's back. He wasn't attacking. He had his hand extended. His aura was flaring, not blue, but a prism of colors. He was projecting. Look! Ash screamed, not with his voice, but with his soul. He forced the memory into Tapu Koko's mind. The void. The cold. The nullity eating the light. The silence where the song should be. He showed the Guardian what he had seen in the sub-basement. He showed him that Aether wasn't the cause, they were the dam holding back the flood. This is what comes, Ash projected. If you destroy us, there is no one left to hold the door. Tapu Koko froze. The electricity around him sputtered. The other Guardians, Lele, Bulu, Fini, stopped their assaults. They drifted closer, sensing the image Ash was broadcasting. They saw the enemy. The anti-nature. The thing that would eat the flowers, dry the oceans, and silence the thunder. The silence on the deck was absolute. Tapu Koko descended slowly. He landed on the railing, 10 feet from Ash. He folded his shell wings. His eyes, usually fierce, were calculating. Ash slid off Solgaleo. He walked toward the god. He didn't bow. He stood tall. "We aren't your enemy," Ash said, his voice hoarse. "But we can't fight it alone. We need the islands. And the islands need Aether." Tapu Koko stared at the boy. He sensed the residue of the nullity on Ash's skin. But he also sensed the blessing of Solgaleo, and the fierce, protective love binding him to the woman standing behind him. The guardian chirped. A sound like a spark jumping a gap. He nodded. Once. Then, Tapu Koko reached into his shell. He pulled out something small and glittering. He tossed it. Ash caught it. It wasn't a Z crystal. It was a seed. A Tapu Koko seed, glowing with faint electric light. A symbol of growth. A pact. Tapu Koko screeched a command. Tapu Lele giggle drifted away. Tapu Bulu grunted and withdrew from the lower decks, leaving a mess of vines behind. Tapu Fini cleared the storm clouds with a wave of her hand. The sun broke through. Tapu Koko looked at Ash one last time, then shot into the sky like a rocket, vanishing in a thunderclap. Ash let out a breath he felt like he'd been holding for an hour. His knees gave out. He sat down hard on the glass roof. Ash. Lusamine was there a second later. She had climbed up the maintenance ladder in heels, disregarding dignity entirely. She dropped to her knees beside him. "Are you insane?" she hissed, grabbing his face, checking for injuries. "Jumping off a building? Fighting a deity?" Ash laughed. It was a tired, happy sound. He held up the glowing seed. "They're on our side," he said. Lusamine looked at the seed, then at Solgaleo, who was nuzzling Ash's shoulder. She looked at the destruction around them, the twisted metal, the broken glass. Then she looked at Ash. He was chaos. He was danger. And he was the most magnificent thing she had ever seen. "You really are the guardian," she whispered. She pulled him into a hug, fierce and trembling. "You fought well," Ash mumbled into her shoulder. "That light screen saved me." "I told you," Lusamine said, her voice thick with emotion. "I am your partner. I cover your back." Ash pulled away slightly, looking at her. The adrenaline was fading, leaving a clarity that was sharper than the battle. "They know it's coming," Ash said quietly. "The nullity. If the Tapus are scared of it. Lusamine, this is bigger than just a rift." "I know," Lusamine said. She stood up, offering him a hand. She pulled him to his feet. They stood together on the roof of their shattered paradise, bathed in the returning sunlight. "We have an alliance with the gods now," Lusamine said, her business tone returning, though her hand remained tightly locked in his. "We have the technology. We have the resources." She looked at the horizon, where the international police ships had vanished days ago, and where the rift still pulsed deep beneath their feet. "Let the darkness come," Lusamine declared. "We will be ready." Ash squeezed her hand. "Yeah," he said. "We will." Chapter 6, The Black Sun. The end of the world didn't announce itself with a bang. It announced itself with silence. It was noon in Alola. The beaches were crowded. The markets were bustling. And then, in a single heartbeat, the sun went out. It wasn't an eclipse. An eclipse was a shadow. This was a theft. The sky turned a sickening, bruised violet. The warmth was sucked from the air instantly, dropping the tropical temperature by 30 degrees in seconds. The birds stopped singing. The waves stopped crashing, the ocean turning into a sheet of black glass. At Aether Paradise, the alarms didn't sound immediately. The sensors were too confused to register that the primary energy source of the solar system had just been eaten. Ash stood in the command center. He watched the main screen, which showed a live feed of the sky. A rip had opened in the atmosphere directly above Pony Island. It was jagged, like a tear in a painting. Through the tear poured the nullity, the black, static fog that erased existence. And from the center of the tear, Necrozma descended. It wasn't the prism of light the legend spoke of. It was a husk. Its crystalline body was cracked, leaking black smoke. Its eyes were red pits of madness. It was starving. It wasn't absorbing light, it was devouring it, ripping the photons out of the air. Energy output is, it's negative, Wick whispered, her hands trembling over the console. It's acting as a heat sink for the entire planet. At this rate, Alola will freeze in 4 hours. It's not just freezing, Lusamine said, her voice steel. She stood beside Ash, gripping the back of his chair. Look at the localized readings. The nullity is spreading. It's unmaking matter. The screen flickered. Director. The comms officer shouted. We have incoming signatures. Hundreds of them. Ultra beasts are pouring out of the rift. They're running, Ash realized. They aren't invading. They're fleeing that. Swarms of Buzzwole, Pheromosa, and Xurkitree were raining down on the islands, terrified and violent, lashed into a frenzy by the encroaching dark. And we have a secondary contact, the officer added, voice grim. Naval Fleet. International police transponders. They're encircling the islands. Ash slammed his fist onto the console. Valerian. He's using the chaos, Lusamine hissed. He'll claim this is our fault. He'll try to seize the Foundation to save the world. The main screen was hijacked. Valerian's face appeared. He looked calm, almost bored, sitting in the bridge of his flagship. People of Alola, Valerian's voice broadcasted on all frequencies. The Aether Foundation has finally doomed us all. Their tampering has broken the sky. The international police is assuming direct control. Surrender your Pokémon. Remain indoors. We are initiating the Omega Protocol. He's going to nuke the rift, Ash said. He thinks he can blow it up. If he detonates an antimatter warhead near the nullity, Lusamine said, her face pale, he won't close the rift. He'll crack the planet in half. Ash stood up. The coat settled on his shoulders. He looked at Lusamine. We have to fight a war on 2 fronts, Ash said. I need you to command the fleet. Keep the Ultra Beasts contained. Don't let them destroy the cities. And keep Valerian's ships off my back. And you? Lusamine asked, though she already knew. I'm going to the rift, Ash said. I'm going to get Solgaleo. We have to stop Necrozma. Ash, Necrozma is a god-eater right now, Lusamine warned, grabbing his lapels. If you get close, it will drain you dry. I have backup, Ash said. He looked at the screen where Tapu Koko was already visible, streaking toward the darkness. Wait, Lusamine said. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small, metallic device. It looked like a drive. Take this. It's the Beast Ball tech, but inverted. It's a light siphon. If you can get close enough, you might be able to feed Necrozma the Z-energy directly, instead of letting it feed on you. Ash took the device. Aether engineering. My engineering, she corrected. She kissed him, hard, fast, and fierce. Come back. Always. Ash turned to the door. Pikachu, let's go save the sun. As Ash reached the hangar, the lights flickered and died. The emergency red glare bathed the corridor. System failure. Wick's voice came over the intercom. We have a breach. Internal security grid is down. Hostiles in the executive wing. Ash skidded to a halt. Valerian strike team. Worse, Wick cried. It's Faba. He's disabled the shield generator. Valerian's dropships are landing on the roof. Ash swore. He looked at the hangar doors, then back toward the elevators leading to the command center where Lusamine was alone. He couldn't leave her. Greninja. Ash threw the ball. The ninja appeared. Go to the roof. Hold the line. Don't let anyone into the command center. Greninja nodded and vanished into the shadows. Lucario, Incineroar, you're with me. We're taking out the trash. Ash sprinted back the way he came. He found Faba in the server room. The traitor was typing furiously, flanked by 3 international police agents with Shadow Hound him. Just a few more codes, Faba muttered, sweating. And the defense grid belongs to Valerian. And then I'll be the director. You're fired, a voice growled. Faba spun around. Ash stood in the doorway. He didn't look like a trainer. He looked like an executioner. Get him. Faba shrieked, diving behind a server rack. The agents released the Shadow Houndoom. They didn't bark. They just charged, eyes glowing with unnatural purple light. Incineroar. Darkest Lariat. Incineroar spun, a tornado of fire and muscle. He slammed into the 3 Houndoom, knocking them aside like bowling pins. Lucario. Bone Rush. Lucario leaped over Incineroar, staff spinning. He disarmed the agents in 3 swift strikes, shattering their capture stylers. Ash walked through the melee. He didn't run. He walked straight to the server rack. Faba was cowering on the floor, holding a datapad. Please. Faba begot. Valerian forced me. He said he'd arrest me. Ash grabbed Faba by the collar and hauled him up. He pinned him against the server bank. You shut down the shields while Lusamine is up there? Ash asked quietly. I. Ash ripped the keycard from Faba's neck. He shoved Faba backward. Lucario, tie him up. Leave him here. You can't leave me. Faba wailed. The nullity is coming. Then you better hope I win, Ash said cold. He tapped his comms. Lusamine. Shields are coming back online. Greninja is on the roof. Ash. Lusamine's voice was strained. Valerian is hailing us. He says he's launching the Omega warhead in 10 minutes unless we surrender Necrozma. 10 minutes, Ash breathed. He looked at the ceiling. Nebby. Ash screamed with his mind. Solgaleo. The roof of the server room melted. Molten steel dripped down. Solgaleo crashed through, roaring. Ash jumped onto the lion's back. To the sky. Chapter 7, Shattered Paradise. The battle in the sky was a kaleidoscope of apocalypse. Above the clouds, the Aether fleet, sleek white ships armed with non-lethal energy cannons, was engaged in a dogfight with Valerian's black gunships. Lasers crisscrossed the dark purple sky. Below, on the islands, the Tapus were fighting a holding action against the frenzied Ultra Beasts. Tapu Bulu was wrestling 2 Buzzwole. Tapu Fini was trapping Pheromosa in water prisons. But the center of the storm was Necrozma. The prism Pokémon was a black hole in the shape of a dragon. It hovered over the rift, screaming a sound that cracked glass miles away. It swiped a claw, and a Valerian gunship simply disintegrated into pixels. Ash and Solgaleo broke the cloud layer. Holy! Ash breathed. Valerian's flagship, the Invictus, was massive. It was positioning itself directly below the rift. A cannon on its deck was glowing ominous red, the antimatter warhead. Ash. Lusamine's voice crackled. She was coordinating the fleet from the ground. Valerian has locked onto the rift. If he fires, the chain reaction will ignite the atmosphere. I'm going for the ship. Ash shouted. Suddenly, a shadow intercepted them. Valerian stood on the deck of the Invictus. He wasn't hiding behind screens anymore. He had released his ace. Shadow Mutuo. The genetic clone floated before the ship, surrounded by armor that pulsed with dark energy. Its eyes were dead. It raised a spoon. Freeze. Solgaleo slammed into a psychic wall. The lion roared, thrashing, but they were suspended in midair. Valerian. Ash screamed, pointing down at the man on the deck. You're going to kill everyone. I am excising a tumor, Valerian's voice boomed from the ship's speakers. Sacrifices are necessary for order. Shadow Mutuo clenched its fist. Solgaleo groaned, the psychic pressure crushing its metal frame. Ash felt his ribs creak. He couldn't move. Think. Think. He looked at Solgaleo. He looked at the device Lusamine gave him. He looked at Necrozma raging above them. Solgaleo, Ash whispered, his teeth gritted against the pain. Can you switch places? Solgaleo growled. Teleport. Not us, Ash said, eyes burning blue. Him. Ash focused on Shadow Mutuo. He focused on Necrozma. Now. Solgaleo's third eye flashed. B-zip. Space warped. Shadow Mutuo vanished from in front of them. In its place, appearing directly in the path of Valerian's ship, was Necrozma. The starving dragon looked down. It saw a massive ship full of energy. It saw Valerian. It roared. Target lock lost, screams erupted from Valerian's bridge. Subject has displaced. It's right on top of us. Necrozma slammed onto the deck of the Invictus. It began to tear the ship apart, ripping through the hull to get to the reactor core. Valerian stumbled as his ship listed violently to the side. Recall Mutuo. Defense mode. But Mutuo was miles away, teleported near the rift, confused. Go. Ash shouted to Solgaleo. While it's distracted. Solgaleo dove past the crumbling flagship. They flew straight toward the rift. The cold was unbearable. The nullity whispered to Ash, trying to freeze his blood. Hungry. Eat this. Ash yelled. He pulled out the device Lusamine had given him. He jammed it into a slot on Solgaleo's collar. Lusamine. Activate the siphon. On the ground, inside the Aether command center, Lusamine slammed her hand onto a large red button. All units, she commanded. Channel Z power to Solgaleo. Now. Every Aether ship, every generator on the island, turned their dishes upward. Beams of pure light shot into the sky, converging on Ash and Solgaleo. Ash screamed as the power hit them. It was too much. His body felt like it was burning up. He was a conduit for the energy of an entire region. Ash, let go. Lusamine cried over the comms. It's too much. Not yet. Ash steered the glowing, burning Solgaleo around. They weren't aiming for the rift. They were aiming for Necrozma, who was currently eating Valerian's ship. Hey! Ugly! Ash roared. Necrozma looked up. It saw a sun. A miniature, blinding sun hurtling toward it. Ash jumped. For the second time in his life, he leaped off a god. He fell toward the dragon, the siphon device in his hand glowing white-hot. Necrozma opened its maw to devour him. Ash slammed the device directly into the dragon's chest, right into the cracked prism core. Ultra burst. Flash. The explosion was silent. A wave of light, pure and blinding, swept outward. It vaporized the nullity fog. It knocked the Invictus out of the sky, Valerian escaping in a pod just in time. It washed over the islands, turning the night back into day. When the light faded, Necrozma was gone. In its place hovered Ultra Necrozma, the dragon of light. It was whole. It was golden. It was beautiful. It roared, not a scream of hunger, but a song of power. It looked at Ash, who was falling through the air, unconscious, his aura completely drained. Ultra Necrozma dipped its head. It fired a beam of soft light, catching Ash, slowing his fall, lowering him gently toward the deck of Aether Paradise. Ash woke up to the smell of smoke and perfume. He was lying on the observation deck. Lusamine was kneeling over him, her face streaked with soot and tears. "Hi," he croaked. "You are fired," Lusamine sobbed, laughing and crying at the same time. "I am firing you for reckless endangerment. Can I get severance pay?" She kissed him. It was soft, lingering, and full of promise. "We'll negotiate," she whispered. Around them, the sky was blue. The sun was shining. The rift was closed. Valerian's fleet was retreating, broken and leaderless. The international police would be busy cleaning up their own mess for years. The Ultra Beasts were calm, wandering confusedly around the island, being corralled by Aether staff not with cages, but with food. Ash sat up, wincing. He looked at Lusamine. She looked back. They had won. Not by conquering, but by restoring. "The throne of Aether," Ash muttered, looking at the white tower behind them. "It needs a king," Lusamine said, resting her head on his shoulder. Ash adjusted his hat. "I think," he said, watching Pikachu climb onto his knee, "it just needs a family." Chapter 8, The Prism Star. The silence of Aether Paradise was different now. It wasn't the sterile, air-conditioned silence of a laboratory, nor the terrified hush of a prison. It was the quiet of a garden after a storm, broken only by the sound of hammers, the whir of welding torches, and the occasional trill of a Pokémon. Ash stood on the edge of the shattered conservation deck. He was watching a group of construction Macamp lift a steel girder back into place. Supervising them wasn't a foreman, but a buzzwool. The massive Ultra Beast flexed its muscles, pointed to a spot, and the Macamp nodded, understanding the universal language of gains. "They adapt fast," a voice said. Ash didn't turn. He knew the footfalls. "They aren't monsters, Wick. They were just refugees. Now that the nullity is gone, they're just neighbors." Wick stepped up beside him. She looked exhausted, clutching a massive stack of datapads, but her smile was genuine for the first time in years. "The cleanup is proceeding ahead of schedule," she reported. "The nullity residue has dissipated. The ecosystem is stabilizing. And Director." She hesitated. "The staff. They're asking about the uniforms." "The uniforms?" Ash adjusted his cap. It was battered, scorched from the fight with Necrozma. "They want to know if we're keeping the white," Wick said. "Or if we're changing colors. To signify the new management." Ash looked out over the ocean. The water was a brilliant turquoise again. The sky was painfully blue. "Keep the white," Ash said. "It's a good color. We just need to wash off the blood." 3 days later. The summit. The conference room was located in the deepest, most secure bunker of the Foundation, the only room Valerian hadn't managed to bug. The holographic table was lit up. On the other end of the connection sat the High Council of the International Police. 5 shadowy figures, their faces obscured by digital scrambling. On the Aether side, there were no holograms. Just flesh and blood. Lusamine sat at the head of the table. She wore a suit of sharp, midnight blue. Her hands were folded on the table, perfectly manicured, perfectly still. To her right sat Ash. He wasn't wearing a suit. He wore his travel gear, though it had been cleaned and mended. He leaned back in the chair, boots resting on the edge of the $1,000,000 table, spinning a master ball on his finger. "This tribunal is in session," the central hologram intoned. The voice was synthesized, stripped of humanity. We are here to discuss the terms of the Aether Foundation's surrender and the extradition of High Commissioner Valerian. Correction, Lusamine said smoothly. We are here to discuss the terms of your retreat. And Valerian isn't being extradited. He is being held as a prisoner of war. Preposterous, the council voice snapped. Valerian is a high-ranking officer. You have no jurisdiction to detain him. Furthermore, the Omega Protocol event was a failed genocide attempt, Ash interrupted. He stopped spinning the ball. He slapped it onto the table. The sound echoed like a gunshot. We have the flight logs, Ash said, his voice dropping into that low, dangerous register that made the air feel thin. We have the recordings from the Invictus. Valerian authorized the use of an antimatter warhead in the atmosphere. He tried to kill a legendary Pokémon. He tried to kill us. He was containing a threat, the council argued, though the voice sounded less certain. He was the threat, Ash countered. He leaned forward, eyes narrowing. Here is the new deal. Aether Paradise is now an independent sovereign nation. Recognized by the Alolan League, the Kanto League, and, thanks to a call I made this morning, Champion Cynthia of Sinnoh. The holograms shifted uneasily. You have no authority, I have a dragon made of light, Ash said simply. And I have the trust of the Tapus. If you send one more black ship into these waters, I won't send it back. I'll let Solgaleo eat it. Lusamine tapped the table, bringing up a document. We are willing to share our research on the ultra wormholes, she offered, playing the diplomat to Ash's warlord. We will provide energy solutions to the regions. We will help you monitor interdimensional threats. But... She looked at Ash. He nodded. The international police are banned from Alola, Lusamine declared. Permanently. And Valerian stays in our brig until he rots. There was a long silence. The council conferred in hushed, scrambled tones. They knew the score. They had lost the narrative. The world had seen the broadcast. They had seen Ash Ketchum jump off a sun lion to save the world, while the police tried to nuke it. Agreed, the council voice finally said, sounding old and tired. We will reassess our operational parameters. The connection cut. The holograms vanished. Lusamine let out a breath, her posture relaxing instantly. She slumped slightly in her chair, closing her eyes. I hate them, she murmured. Bureaucrats playing God. They're gone, Ash said. He reached over and took her hand. We won. Lusamine opened her eyes. She looked at him, really looked at him. We didn't just win, Ash. You bullied the world government into submission while wearing sneakers. Ash grinned. They're comfortable sneakers. 1 week later. The Grand Gala. The grand ballroom of Aether Paradise had been restored. The glass ceiling, shattered during the battle, was now a dome of hard light energy, displaying the night sky in high definition. The room was packed. It wasn't just staff. It was the elite of the Pokémon world. Professor Oak was chatting with Professor Burnett near the buffet. Champion Lance was inspecting a docile circuitry that was acting as a chandelier, looking both confused and impressed. Gladian and Lily were holding court near the fountain, looking lighter, happier than they had in years. Music played, a waltz, soft and elegant. But the eyes of the room were drawn to the top of the grand staircase. Presenting, the announcer's voice boomed, the president of the Aether Foundation, Lusamine. And the executive director, Ash Ketchum. They stepped out. Lusamine was a vision in white and gold, a dress that shimmered like moonlight. She looked radiant, the shadows of the Nihilego completely erased from her aura. And beside her was Ash. He wasn't wearing the travel gear. He was wearing the formal dress uniform of the Guardian. A high-collared white military-style jacket with gold aiguillettes, black trousers, and polished boots. But on his head, defying all protocol, was his hat, clean, white, with the Aether gold emblem stitched onto the front. He offered his arm to Lusamine. Ready, he whispered. Nervous, she teased, taking his arm. Her grip was tight. I'd rather fight Necrozma again, Ash admitted. There are too many forks at the table. Just follow my lead, she said. And don't summon any legendaries during the toast. They descended the stairs. The room erupted in applause. It wasn't polite applause, it was thunderous. These were people who knew how close the world had come to ending. As they reached the floor, the crowd parted. Professor Oak stepped forward, a glass of champagne in his hand. He looked at Ash, his eyes twinkling with pride and a little bit of shock. Ash, my boy, Oak said, shaking his head. I send you out to complete a Pokédex, and you end up running a sovereign nation. Your mother is, coping. She's currently debating whether to bake you a cake or ground you for life. Ash laughed, rubbing the back of his neck. Tell her I'm eating my vegetables, Professor. I think you've done a bit more than that, Lance interjected, stepping up. The Dragon Master looked at Ash with a new level of respect. You held the line against entropy, Ash. The League is, reconsidering its structure. We might need a new title for you. Champion feels small. I don't need a title, Ash said, looking at Lusamine. I have a job. The music swelled. Dance with me, Lusamine commanded softly. She pulled him onto the floor. Ash was not a graceful dancer by nature, but his aura made him adaptable. He synced his movement with hers, letting her guide him, their steps falling into a natural rhythm. Everyone is looking at us, Ash murmured as he spun her. Let them look, Lusamine said. She stepped closer, violating the space usually reserved for ballroom partners. She rested her head near his shoulder. Let them see that the Aether Foundation isn't a cold monolith anymore. Let them see it has a heart. I'm the heart. Ash asked. You're the pulse, she corrected. She looked up at him. Before you came, this place was a tomb. Beautiful, but dead. You woke it up. You woke me up. Ash looked around the room. He saw the Ultra Beasts mingling with Pokémon. He saw scientists laughing. He saw the world healing. It wasn't just me, Ash said. You built this place, Lusamine. You just forgot why. And you reminded me. She stopped dancing. They were in the center of the floor, but it felt like they were alone. Ash, she said, her voice serious. The crisis is over. The world is safe. You could go. You could go back to Kanto. You could challenge another league. Ash looked at her. He saw the fear in her eyes, the fear that the hero would ride off into the sunset, leaving the damsel behind. He reached up and took off his hat. He placed it on her head. It was too big, sliding down over her eyes slightly. She blinked, surprised. I'm not going anywhere, Ash said. I've been running since I was 10 years old. Running from town to town, battle to battle. He took her hands. I'm tired of running. I want to build something. And I want to build it with you. Lusamine adjusted the hat, a smile breaking across her face that was so bright it rivaled Necrozma's light. Then stay, she whispered. Rule with me. Not as a subordinate. As my equal. My partner. Deal, Ash said. He leaned in. The crowd held its breath. He kissed her. It wasn't the desperate kiss of the hallway, or the goodbye kiss of the cliff. It was a promise. A public declaration of an alliance that would reshape the world. The room exploded in cheers. Pikachu, sitting on the buffet table, fired a thunderbolt into the ceiling in celebration, causing the circuitry chandelier to strobe like a disco ball. Epilogue, the balcony. The party was winding down. The guests were leaving. Ash and Lusamine stood on the highest balcony of the mansion, looking up at the stars. The tropical air was warm. So, Ash said, leaning on the railing. What's the plan for tomorrow, Madam President? Well, Lusamine said, leaning against him. We have a budget meeting at 0900. Then we have to oversee the release of the Nihilego back into a stabilized wormhole. And then. She paused. Then, Lusamine said, tracing the line of his jaw. I was thinking we take a vacation. A real one. No ultra beasts. No apocalypse. Where? I hear Pallet Town is nice this time of year, she said with a smirk. I should meet your mother. After all, if I'm going to keep her son, should probably ask for permission. Ash laughed. She's going to make you do chores. I run a global corporation, Ash. I think I can handle washing dishes. Ash looked out at the horizon. The sun was beginning to rise, a real, golden sun, rising over a peaceful ocean. He felt the weight of the Z-crystal in his pocket. He felt the hum of the island below him. He felt the warmth of the woman beside him. For the first time in his life, he didn't wonder what was over the next hill. He didn't wonder what new Pokemon he would find in the next region. He was exactly where he was supposed to be. Ready for the sunrise? Lusamine asked. Ash put his arm around her, pulling her close. Yeah, Ash Ketchum said, smiling at the dawn of a new age. I choose you. The end. The end. Thank you for watching this video. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video.